So welcome to my second Facebook Live. I've got some great questions. You guys are always so good at giving me some really cool questions. All right, so I'm going to get into it because, as Carly knows, I've been busting to answer this question for days because it's a great question. Okay, so Carly wrote, what are your thoughts on long and low work? I was in and off the track clinic a couple of weeks ago, and the dressage trainer, who's highly regarded and find her fab, commented that on the buckle style where you they've actually discovered is bad, and it needs to be more nose in line with, say, the chest area and not nose to the ground, and for there to still be a contact with the hand. Fantastic question. First of all, nose no lower than chest level. Okay, stepping up and under with the hind legs is where all the muscle change in the core and everything engage. So I absolutely agree with that is like an ideal posture and the lowest for the nose to actually go. And just to show everyone a picky, what do we mean when we talk about that? So let me see if I can show it here. So here, can you see that yellow line, everyone? That yellow line is the level of the chest, and you can see the horse's nose is just above that. So on or above that line is like a real ideal posture. The nose is there, hind legs stepping up and under, etc. That's got everything kind of working really well. Okay, so I absolutely do agree with that. That's the ideal, like, kind of long and low posture is for that to is for that posture to be. Okay, and I agree with that. Okay, however, I want to add some things and I think the problem comes in the sport of dressage, which I do consider my sport. Okay, is that we get a little bit blinded because we get to have a contact. Okay, so we get this kind of false impression that we actually hang on and put the horse in a frame, or we put the horse in a posture and the horse needs our hands, and this is why I actually recommend for all dressage riders to go out and ride a reiner. Okay, go out and ride a Western trained horse, because they don't have a contact. They actually have to train the horse to actually have a posture, actually adopt a posture. And I think that thought that you can't ride on a loose rein because the horse will all just fall apart and, its nose will go too low and everything like that, and it'll all be disastrous and bad for the horse. Well, first of all, I don't think if the horse's nose goes too low that it's necessarily detrimental. I ride horses around when they're young or when they're rebooted on a loose rein and let them put their head anywhere, because I'm dealing with more than just a posture. I'm dealing with a mind as well, and them getting used to someone sitting on their back, etc. However, let's get back to the actual posture. So when you ride a Western trained horse, what you'll discover is that they train their horses to adopt a posture and to actually hold themselves, within that posture. But in our sport, I think we get a little bit, because we can use a contact, I think there's a little bit of a misconception that comes there that, and don't think that I think people necessarily do it, but I think they get the impression that they've got that they create this posture with their hands and holding the horse in it, because the horse will fall apart if you don't. And that's where I kind of have this differing thing, because what I've learned from the Western world is that you train a horse to actually adopt that posture. Okay, you train it. So I'm going to show you some more pickies. I've got some more pickies to show you that will actually help this. So, and first of all, what I really want you to understand is that it's a really incredible feat of communication to take a horse and to communicate to it to tell it that this is the way I want you to hold your body. This is the way that you hold your body that will protect you and keep you sound when you're being ridden, okay, throughout your ridden career. So riding isn't detrimental to you. That is a massive feat of communication. Okay, and it's kind of easy to think we just, put the horse in and we hold them there and we hold them together. But no, you can actually communicate that to the horse. Okay, and I do it in a stepwise process, so I'm just going to show you that just for some interest. So while I completely agree with that thing that, you know, horses ridden around with their nose below that line, the core's not engaged, they're ramming on the forehand, you know, their legs are trailing out behind, you know, and their balance is all offset. So that's not ideal. But as I said, when I'm restarting horses or breaking them in, you know, I'm not going to be too fussy about where they actually carry their head or where it goes, you know, and I don't think a horse, like, just say for instance, I've got a picture here. Here is a young horse, first of all, that's been started. Let me get it in picture. This is a young horse. You know, this horse has had 15 rides, and he's at the point where he's riding around in the arena, and he's just ridden in a halter, just with reins attached to the side, so it's acting like a side pull. And of course that horse is above the bit, his posture's all terrible and whatever, but you know, but that horse was learning to carry someone on its back without us messing around with his balance or where his head was. Just, you know, just let him get used to it. And yeah, it's not ideal if he was ridden around like that for years, that would be really bad. But just for, you know, the few months that happened before we started training him, and just to prove that he survived, this is him a couple of years later, you know, doing a really nice stretchy trot circle in his dressage test, so you can see his body's all changed and everything like that. So, you know, I believe in, you know, you're creating a lot of communication goes into teaching the horse how to adopt that posture, and you know, their mind has to be with you and relaxed and accepting of it and in a learning state for their muscles to be relaxed and for them to actually learn. Now let me get to this point that I was making before. Okay, so when just to prove that it is good, this is Ingrid Klimke on her Grand Prix horse, and as you can see, she's riding on a loose rein in this picture, and the horse's nose is chest level. And this is what you teach a horse. This is the posture. This is their go-to kind of posture that they go to on a loose rein. So you teach that. So if you let go of the reins, a really well-trained horse should be able to keep their posture. And I never forget, one of the greatest experiences I had was going to Christoph Hess when he came to Perth and gave a masterclass. He was absolutely brilliant. On my blog, on my website, you will find a Christoph Hess report. Read it. It was really outstanding. And the thing that this guy did is that every single rider that came into the arena, the first thing he asked them to do was let go of your reins. Let go of your reins. And why he wanted to do that, he explained, he wanted to know what your reins were actually doing. Were your reins forcing a posture on a horse? Were they holding it back and being the handbrake? Two things that you're not meant to do. And he looked, first of all, where the horse's head went. You let go of that rein. Where the head goes tells you where the spine is. So if the head goes up, spine's hollowed, okay? And the other thing you look for is the horse, did a horse run off? So he's testing the quality of the actual rein age by doing that. And there's Ingrid Klimke on her horse. Her reins have gone loose and her horse has adopted the posture. And you train that posture. So let me just show you, for instance, how it develops. So this is this same horse I showed in the first thing. This horse had a number of problems, and this horse was being what I call rebooted, okay, and having its foundation basically rebroken in. And this is the horse learning. So when you're on a loose rein with some careful training, that horse had learned that if it puts its head down, okay, just from trial and error and bending it and everything like that, that horse learned that if it adopted that posture just with its neck, it was more comfortable. So it discovered that itself. Bingo. Communicating to the horse, I want its spine to be flexed. Okay, and a lot of bending helped that horse discover that. But as you can see, this horse's nose is below the chest level, and you can actually see, I've drawn some lines there, but you can actually see, I'll just show it there a little bit longer. The line, let me just show you, the distance between the two forelegs is longer than the distance between the hinds. That's because the horse is so on the forehand, all its weight's slamming onto the front here, and it's not using its hind legs, and also the legs aren't flexing. Okay, they're just quite stiff behind. And that's not ideal. But this horse, as I said, it was able to progress. So here it is, just a couple of weeks later, and it's learning to adopt the posture. You can see it's actually got its hind legs working now a little bit more, and the line there, the distance between the forelegs and between the two hind legs is now equaled. Okay, and that's what I want to see at that early kind of foundation stage. So my answer to your question has been a little bit long, but if you let go of the reins, the horse should, if you've trained that posture correctly and that horse understands the posture that you want to, that is best for it, that you communicate over a lot of, chipping away at it, teaching it things, showing it that it's more comfortable, etc., showing it the way that it's going, getting that relaxation, getting it cool with everything. When you let go of the reins, the horse should actually just assume its posture. Okay, it shouldn't fall apart. Okay, now I do absolutely agree that we want them no lower than chest, and this is all ideal, right? It's all the ideal. And I don't care if they go a bit longer. So like sometimes after you give them a work and you get them, put them on a long rein, they'll stretch a little bit more. So what? That's just them they're wanting to stretch that little bit more just to take the pressure off, just chill. But they shouldn't fall apart. Okay, they shouldn't completely lose it. If they do, that means you're trapping them in a posture with your hands. Okay, you're creating that when they should be, it's an equal thing. They kind of understand and adopt it, and when you let go of that frame that you've created, they should sort of softly stay in it and just softly kind of melt into it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So do I agree with that? Yes. Do I think they need reins to hold them in it all the time? No. Is it bad to, with a more advanced horse, to put them on a loose rein? No, because their posture should be trained, okay, and they shouldn't fall apart. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, so really, really good question. Okie dokie. Next question. Can you please talk about projecting your energy towards your horse and how it can affect the response you get when asking for something from them? I guess also how you can use it to communicate to your horse and also be able to read how your horse might be feeling so you can respond appropriately. I hope this makes sense. It's a bit of a double-barreled question, I think. But anyway, this question is from Virginia and it's really cool. It was really interesting because yesterday I think I gave Simon his first ever coaching session of working with a horse, and that was one of the things you really learn about how you can project energy and it can actually have an effect on a horse. And I always do it because I always like starting people in the round pen. I love people learning how to control a horse with nothing. Okay, because controlling a horse with nothing, when you got nothing hanging on to it, okay, kind of goes back to the last question. You got nothing that can kind of force a situation on a horse. They'll react to things, okay, and you get to see it. So in the round pen, people learn how to be really aware of their body, their movement, their position, and their energy. Okay, and so I do all that at nothing because you can really see it. Okay, and you become aware of it and you learn how to control it. Anyways, part of Simon learning, Jade, the dear, lovely, beautiful quarter horse she was, Jade worked out that Simon really was a bit of a beginner, and his mind was all too focused on where he was meant to be, how fast he was doing, how he held this, how he take his point off. There was a lot of things he was having to think about. And so Jade's a bit of a quarter. She's a bit of a has more woe than go. So you got to just, her level of feel is a little high. You got to keep your energy a bit more up for her. So Jade had kind of gone into slow-mo mode and wasn't going forward very much. So I got Simon to up his energy. Anyway, he's upped his energy and Jade flew off, because what Simon did, he increased his energy. He just went from like 0 to 10 and Jade, of course, felt that, but he got to see it. Okay, you got to experience, and then as we started playing around, and that little video that he put up was a really cool little bit where he'd worked out he had to keep his energy up, to keep her in the canter, to get the canter and keep her there, and then make himself smaller and withdraw it to get her to do a downward transition. And he was messing around with that, and it was pretty cool. So absolutely, we can project energy. We can do it. What I also like to call it is presence. Okay, I also call it magic. Okay, I've got a number of words that I kind of use that hit home with people, but it's presence. So you raise your presence, okay, and I always feel like I'm projecting out, and then I shrink it back inside myself. Okay, and I learned to do that. I got kind of good at that being a university lecturer. You know, I'm standing in the front of a lecture theatre with 400 people. You know, it might be at a conference or just a big event, and I have to make myself big to engage all those people. So I make it big, okay? I project myself out, and then, but I don't keep that on when I'm talking to someone intimately that comes up and asks me a question. I make that smaller. So I actually learned that exact same thing I did at work, I do with horses. So I learned to like push myself out and make myself small, push myself out, make myself small. And man, of course, the horse feels that, okay? So it's all about that presence. Now, I find that extroverts, Simon's an extrovert, so he had a lot of ease doing that. Extroverts pick up this a little bit more because they're good at making their energy big and talking to a group of people and really enjoying it, okay? And then they've got to learn to make themselves smaller, so dial it up and dial it down, and then you learn to play it like an instrument, okay, when you're working with a horse. People that are more introverted, the smaller, they struggle with it initially, but they can get bigger. Okay, they can really learn to make themselves big as well, but it's learning to make themselves big, make themselves small. I always have the odd person that will come to me and they always go, oh, I just have too much energy about me. You know I really upset the horse and I've got all this nervous energy about me. And I always tell them, it's like, stop. That is going to be an absolute asset for you. You just got to learn how to control it. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. So absolutely, we've got energy that we can project out, and it's energy, or you might want to call it presence, or as I tell people, it can be like magic. Okay, you're sending the horse some energy, but it's nothing that I don't think is too really strange to take on board. Like horses do pick it up, but the same way as we pick up each other. You know, you can pick up when someone is really stressed. You can pick that up. You can pick up people's emotions and what they're thinking and distraction or their level of tension. You know, you can pick that up, or you can pick up when they're really, really flat and small. You can pick that up. Even in your animals, you can pick that up, and of course they can pick it up with us as well. Okay, so I hope that answered that question. All right, moving on. Next one. Hi, Shelley. My question. What do you think about time off for a young horse, just getting started, like a few weeks work, then a spell? Is it good for their brain or counterproductive for their fitness? Oh my goodness, do I have opinions about this? In my opinion, it's bad for fitness and it's bad for their brain. Okay, it's really not a cool thing to do. And why I say that is that being learned to be ridden is quite, it's quite an ordeal for the horse, and it requires a hell of a lot of fitness and strength development. Okay, so they've just learned to be ridden. They've learned all this stuff, all these new things of how to respond, this new job that they have to do, and carrying around a person, and and getting this fitness of being able to carry them, and walk, trot, and canter, and all these, and getting their balance. That's very important, getting their balance with someone sitting on their back and feeling good about it. So just at the end of training, they're feeling more confident at it. They've had all this practice. It's like they've been going to the gym regularly, and they've got stronger and everything like that, and they've been practicing all these new things they've learned. Then they go home and they get chucked in the paddock. And that's like you've just gone and done all this hard work, and you go and get chucked in a paddock for weeks, and all your fitness goes, and all your strength goes, and your ability to balance becomes not so cool. And it's been a while since you've learnt that really, new stuff you've learnt. And then people bring them back and get on them and wonder why they get anxious or they don't know as much. And it's like, well, they're back to feeling unbalanced. And not only that, when you've had a break from the gym and you go back, about how sore you are. Okay, so they get ridden, they're out of practice. Okay, they get sore as hell and not as good as practice. They haven't practiced that ridden stuff for a while. It's not cool. When you get a horse back from the break, it's keep it in work. Establish that relationship with them. You know, that's actually really important. So people that put their horses on spell, you know, unless the horse is going to go back and get, you know, sure, you might spell it, but bring it back like it doesn't know anything. Get it fit again, put it back, do groundwork with it, go back to the start. Sure, do that, okay? However, just allowing it go and get started and then giving it a break for months and months and months or weeks and weeks and weeks or whatever, you're just letting that horse physically and mentally deteriorate. And then you bring it back and you expect it to be as good as it was then. It's not. So I'm an advocate for keeping it in work, or if you do bring it back and start it from the start again. You know, it's going to pick up everything a lot quicker, but you're respecting that horse has to get fit and grow strong and get its balance back. Otherwise, those things freak it out. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay. Next question. How am I going for time? Good. Okay. Hi, Shelley. This question is, what do you... Oh, I've answered that one. I've got to turn the page. Hang on. How to remouth. Okay, so I've been doing neck flexing and hindquarter disengaging and bend to a stop. Horse is improving, but is still still resistant initially and then softens. If I'm trotting in a straight line and then I ask him to turn or for some inside flexion, he locks his jaw and stiffens his neck and shoulders. Okay, what you have here is a brace reflex, okay, or a habit. This is the horse that is actually protecting its mouth. And it's actually learnt how to do this. And what's happening is when you pick up those reins, you are re-triggering that, oh, I've got to protect myself. Now, I'm going to get Simon. If Simon can come here, I haven't told him what he's got to do. I haven't told him because I want it to be real, okay? And I want to show you why horses learn how to brace when you pick up the rein. Okay, I'm going to show you how it happens. It's created by, that in this horse's history, I'm not saying that, Danny, who did this is your fault. This in this horse's history, okay, it's learnt that it has to protect its mouth. And I'm going to show you how that happens. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Simon, I want you to grab the end of this. I want you to hold it. Just let go for a sec. I'm going to hold, sorry, let go. There. Okay, you're going to hold it like this. Okay, and I'm just becoming in the shot. Okay, so this is my hand here. Now, Simon hand's here. This is, I'm going to show you how a brace reflex is created. Okay, ready, Simon? Do not let go of this rope. Okay, I'm going to pull on it. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Ready? Okay. Okay, what did you just do then?
You just resist, you pull against.
Yeah. Okay, so did everyone see that? Okay, so if something's picked up and it's ripped on or it's picked up quickly, what happens is that, the reflex of the horse, what happened with Simon's hand was that he braced it. Okay, he was ready and waiting for me to pick up that rope and pull on him. Okay, now that's a quick, over-exaggerated. But what's happened is that if you're not going to have a relaxed mouth if you've got a bit of metal in it and someone picks it up harsh. You're not. You're going to brace yourself. You're going to brace all your neck and that kind of thing to take on that yank. Otherwise, it's going to rip through your mouth and rip your head around. So you brace. Okay, that's a brace response. And that's what's happened in this horse's history is it's learnt that when it feels that bit being picked up, it braces itself to protect itself. And that's what it's created by. And that's what's happened in this horse's history. So what you've got to do with this horse is you have to get rid of that brace habit. How do you do that? Okay. First of all, it's actually all about you. It's all about you and how you pick up those reins. Okay. You got to pick it up with softness. Okay, you've got to pick those reins up and be aware of the speed of your hand and how you're picking them up. Okay, and you've got to get under the brace response trigger. So there'll be a response that triggers that horse to brace itself. You've got to get underneath it and be softer and more gentle to be able to get underneath it and to retrain it. So that's your job. So when I have a horse with a brace response, I start just on the ground and I'm just picking it up. I'm just getting the horse to move its head really, really slightly. I just pick it up and I just just really and it's a challenge for me to get under that brace response. And then what I'm doing, I'm repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, because I've got to show to that horse that I'm not going to hurt it, okay? That I'm gentle, and they can feel it and follow it, and they'll be okay. They can feel it and follow it and be okay. They don't have to feel it and brace themselves to protect themselves. So I'm repeating that. And as I said, I start off just with lateral flexion, and then I take it into the saddle. And I start off just with little movements, okay? Just getting the horse to pick up and soften, pick up and soften, pick up and soften, and then pick up and soften, move a little bit more laterally, etc. And then I go into the saddle. But with those horses, it's a massive thing that I try for me. It's my challenge to, if I pick up that horse and I get a brace response, I'm going to stop. I'm going to repeat it again to get myself underneath, become really conscious of my hand, and really conscious that I'm sending through softness down the brain. And then again, that's my magic, that you got to believe that you can make that horse soft. Okay, but that's a challenge for you. Okie dokie, moving on. Okay, moving on. Next question. Introducing your horse to high intensity environments. For example, competition arenas with lots of horses in a warm-up. If on an endurance ride, having horses overtaking, crowds of spectators, signage, etc. How would you go about introducing a horse to the competition world? Okay, well, I've got heaps to say about this. In fact, big part of my course, Things to Know About Horses, on Calm, Willing and Confident Horse course that I've got, has got a big kind of lean to people understanding all about why horses really suffer with changes of environments with lots of distractions. It's because horses are not like us. They don't generalize. Okay, we really generalize. You show us a chair, you show us a supermarket, you show it to us once, we can pick another one. Okay, we can just match things very easily. Oh, that's the same as that, that's the same as that. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to assess risk of an area very, very quickly, because we put things in categories and we have ratings on them. Is that something scary? If that's not something scary, that's something benign, we do that. So we're very fast. So drop us in a new area with something new, and we very quickly can go, we're okay. I might not be familiar with this place, but I'm familiar with all the things in it, okay? The other thing is that when we learn, we don't tend to connect, we separate what we learn from where we are. Horses don't. Horses connect what they know, okay, with where they are. It all becomes part of the response. Is when I'm here and you ask me to do that, I do this, okay? However, when you're not there and you ask them to do this, it's a bit fuzzy, okay? So they don't learn as well. So when you take horses to another environment, okay, or with new things they haven't seen before, their learning goes out the window and they think they're on Mars. So they panic, they go, they get very reactive and worried about it because they're so out of sorts. Okay, really, it sets them off. They can't even help doing it. They don't consciously do it. It's like the high alert button goes on in their brain. Okay, because they're not designed. They have not evolved to get on airplanes or get in cars and go and travel places. They've evolved to live and die in one particular area. So they're different from us. And we don't appreciate that. So how do you get a horse good? This is what you got to do. You got to expose it to a lot. You've got to teach it and allow it to experience and be exposed to the world where it's okay and it's fine. Okay, you can't take it out and have a crappy experience. That's going to set you up. Okay, so what you do is you start taking that horse out, and you be smart and you take it out to very low energy, low environments, maybe just to a friend's house, and you go visit, you eat a nice hay bag and you go home. Same thing goes for venues. You just go out, you take your horse places, take it down the beach, take it down the river, take it for a walk somewhere, take it to the venue, take it for a walk around, give it hay bag, give it carrots, okay? So it knows that when it goes out to these new places, it's pretty easy going, okay? Then once it gets good with that, you go and you take it, you might do some groundwork. That's it. And then it gets good with that. And again, you start at low distraction environments and you start building it up, okay? Until like you're riding it. When it comes to other horses around, I'll give you another hint. The greatest thing I ever did was take young horses to people that train rodeo and things like that, to other sports, because it's really interesting. It really blew my mind when I got introduced to, like, to say, the rodeo crowd, because they're really weird. They never had an issue or thought there was an issue of horses having issues with other horses. They didn't think about it. It was just all normal. You all just rode around in a crazy group, all going left, cantering crazily. And that was all normal. And strangely, all the horses thought it was normal as well. So it was really good to take my dressage horses off to the rodeo training grounds and just ride with people that didn't think it was an issue. Okay, their horses didn't think it was an issue. And strangely, my horse didn't think it was an issue really that either. And just to ride around with them and do things and, pony the horses off other horses that were really confident at it and stuff like that. So that was a really interesting to be opened up to that world. And I think that's one of the things I'm really lucky about, is that I've got to see different disciplines and different worlds and their different attitudes towards things, and how their different attitudes actually, create different problems, So anyway, so just exposing your horse, but taking it out a lot. You can't just take it out once a month. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's got to be regularly take your horse out. Regularly take your horse out and make sure you focus on it having good experiences. So good experiences, that it feels successful, it wasn't daunting or terrible or traumatic. And that's the thing I tell people when you go out and you go to that first competition, or any competition. I don't care if your horse is 12 years old. If your horse is not handling something in the environment, okay, always be prepared to scratch. It's that whole concept, and I'm going to say it: choose your horse first, the sport second. If your horse isn't coping, listen to it. Don't make it an ordeal, because I tell you what, you make something an ordeal for your horse, you go in there and you spur it around a dressage arena because it's freaked out by one side of it or something like that. Guarantee the next time you go into that arena, okay, you're not going to get a good performance, because the horse has got a good chance of remembering that terrible experience it had. So choose the horse, the sport second, and it will actually make sure that you have good performances in the future. So there's my tip on that. Now, just catch up with you guys. Does anyone have any questions, anything like that? I haven't had any flash up. All cool? All right. Have I had any questions? Oh, just some follow-ups? Okay, I just stopped there, just have a look. Because my screen, I'm sorry guys, but my screen hasn't been flicking up. It's kind of got stuck. Okay, so what do we got?
Just show these at the end, so we'll talk about doing a post with these is what they're interested in.
Yeah, yep, sure. I'll definitely put the photos up and stuff like that for you all. Yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah, so sorry guys, I haven't got any comments, so I've just been yabbering on to myself. Okay, so, yeah, so if you want to know more about that, my course, I do go through that, because part of training horses or really forming a good relationship with your horse and even performing well, in a sport, all comes down to making sure they really understand, they're really motivated, and they grow in confidence. And the key to that is really understanding them. Okay, they're different from us, and we have a lot of assumptions we make on them because, we just perceive they're like us, so they see the world like us, and they don't. Okay, they're different. But if you can understand those differences, wow, that makes you make really, really good training decisions, okay? And just decisions with their life that can really set them up to really flourish. Because the more I learn about horses, the more I work with them, they are extremely gentle creatures and highly trainable. Like, even the maddest, craziest, angriest horse I've ever met is still restraining itself. It could do a hell of a lot worse, but it restrains itself. They truly are very gentle. And people think they're all these reactive, scary, neurotic messes. That's only when they're really stressed. Okay, horses can learn to get and handle a lot of things. Okay, alrighty, moving on. How am I going for time? 10 minutes. Okay, so this question here, mine is more to do with people and realizing that anxiety and pain can be hand in hand. And what are the signs to look for? Well, if you want to know more about this, episode 5 of Canter Therapy with myself and Kat, we actually talked about pain from my perspective of training and coaching people, and Kat's perspective from also being a rider, but also a farrier. So we had a really good discussion, and I really recommend that everyone has a listen to it. I think we covered some really cool things. But yes, people can be very ignorant about their horse being in pain, because people think that when an animal or a horse is in pain, it'll limp. It doesn't. Okay, horses are these stoic animals, and part of their evolution of being a prey animal is that they hide. They actually hide their unsoundness. They'll hide it. Okay, not only that, there's some soundnesses that the horse is unsound, the horse is unwell, unhealthy, in pain, but is not limping. Okay, or not overtly unsound. Things like neurological diseases, arthritis in certain parts of the body, you know, other metabolic diseases and things like that. You know, the horse won't limp, but they're in pain. So sometimes it's very hard. So people can be very ignorant of it, but also it can be very hard to pick. But pain can absolutely, definitely cause anxiety because of why? If you look at the worry cup analogy, that a horse can only handle a cup of worry. If you go put a stack of pain in there, it's not going to be able to cope with very much. Then if you make it do things that make it hurt more, that's really going to blow it over the top. So yes, pain can absolutely cause anxiety. And how do you know? Okay. The best way to know is, first of all, the horse's ability to learn will be compromised. Okay, they won't be able to learn properly because they're anxious, they're over arousal, and they don't learn very well. Okay, so their learning would be compromised. Now, how can you tell they're learning compromised? They'll struggle to pick things up. So if you're doing really, really good training and you're making sure that you're being consistent and applying, you know, cues and pressure, or if you're doing clicker training, you're doing it all correctly and things like that, and the horse is not picking it up, you got a problem. You got an interference with the horse being able to learn that, whatever you're teaching it, as long as making sure that you're keeping it simple. So if you're teaching a horse simple, struggling to pick it up, its results, that's been inconsistent and you're not progressing, you're always stuck, then there's a damn good chance that you've got that means you've got an interference for the horse being able to learn. And number one interference is pain. Okay, so that's a good, you know, that's the heads up. That's how you can tell. And of course, you know, there are all the signs of anxiety, and if the horse is unsound or carrying itself or moving on, there's a whole lot of other detail that goes in there. But the one that I believe is the most powerful one to understand is if the horse fails to learn, is inconsistent in its response, or fails to progress. That's key. And an example with that is that I had a beautiful horse that had just failing to go forward. Okay, this wouldn't learn to go forward. You had to give it a smack, like every time to go forward. And I took it in for training, and you know, some days it would be okay, but you know, the next day you'd have to go through the cues and give it whack, 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 you know, to get it going. And it's just like, this is not right. This horse is not learning. So this horse, than learning just to go more forward, would rather get hit. And it knew that. And that was wrong. That was not cool. Anyway, what actually happened with that horse is that, you know, it got sent to the vet a number of times because I was suspicious about this horse for a while. And each time it's just young, you know, it's just not strong enough. It's just got to build some muscle, rah-de-rah. And it's just like, this is not normal. It just wouldn't cut loose. You know, this horse just wouldn't free up. You know, just always just lope along a bit, and it would always need a smack, and not cool. Anyway, this horse actually ended up having C6, C7 malformation and terrible arthritis in its neck, along with impingements on its spine. So this horse was not only in pain from arthritis in its neck, which was a bit peculiar, it wasn't lame, okay, but it had arthritis in its neck, but it also had impingements on its spine, which means it was actually had probably trouble knowing where its legs were going. So that's why it wasn't moving forward, because it couldn't feel or coordinate itself properly and had terrible pain in its neck. So that's why it couldn't go forward. But how did I pick that up? Because it wouldn't learn. It didn't learn. It was inconsistent. It couldn't progress. Something was wrong. Something was interfering with it. So I hope that helps. Always remember that. Okay, all right. I don't know if I've got any questions because I haven't got any comments to see. A few. Okay, all right. Just looking at a few. Okay, all right. Okay, moving on. I think I've got time for one more. So do you have any steps to help with confidence on going behind your horse and being close to the back end? I grew up with ponies and my grandfather's stock horse. I had to do all the work myself, except when it came to going behind them. He would let me ride them after he picked them up from the sales, even though they were rank, but going behind them was a no-no. So I suppose it's ingrained in my brain to give the back end a wide berth. I've been working on Tuff's front end with his ears, etc., and now would love to get confident with his back end. All right, this is really cool because this is actually what my little book that I released yesterday talks a lot about. It is absolutely ingrained. When you're a child, you learn things, because when you're a child, you don't necessarily have like a critical manager to your thought. You just take things in as kind of factual, and that's why you can learn some pretty crappy things about yourself, and culture puts some stuff in there that I talk about in my confidence and trust book. However, in this case, I talk about in the book invisible core beliefs, things that you're not actually aware of, these thoughts that you have about yourself and the world that you don't know are there, that sit under the layers and kind of interfere and determine how you perceive the world and how you see yourself. However, in this case, this belief here is not invisible. So Beck, who asked this question is visible. This belief is visible. She knows where it came from and what it happened, but it's still been ingrained in you because you're a child. So if someone says that's dangerous, that's been programmed into you, okay? And it's now just a habit. So how do you overcome it? Well, one, you're conscious of it, which is really good. Secondly, what I advise and what I talk about in the book, you've got to get good at being able to determine whether a horse is safe to walk behind. Like is this horse giving all green flags so that it's standing there relaxed? And then, of course, if you do walk behind it, you've got to go very close to it and keep your hand on the horse, and always make sure the horse knows where you are. But how you overcome it is to catch yourself, because we all have habits, and if people have habits of, and you're not alone in dealing with phobias of the back end of a horse, is catch yourself, because what people normally do is that, just say doing up a rug, you'll do up one leg strap, and instead of walking behind the horse, you'll walk all the way around the front and do up the other one. Catch yourself doing things like this and create habits or patterns where you have to challenge yourself. But you've got to make sure you just don't do it blindly and walk past any horse's back end, okay? Start with your own horse and start with rugging or start with grooming, but catch yourself and know yourself for the things that you just avoid, and have a pattern set up where you do things. So what I recommend is just say, when you're rugging, catch yourself, look, touch the horse, walk around the back end to do up the other side. When you're grooming, doing the same thing. When you're picking up the horse's feet, when you're putting this tack on and off, okay? Do all these things, but catch yourself, but create little routines so that you can create a new habit of not avoiding it. Anyway, I hope that helps. Okay, I'm going to do one last question. All right, so because otherwise I'm going to run out of time. Okay, so my horse, here it is, just a sneaky question, if you have time. How to react or prevent issues whilst tied up, i.e. cribbing, pawing, moving around, thanks. Okay, so to prevent this issue is, first of all, make sure they're trained to come off pressure really well. Lots of people going, or even in their training, before you even got them, they taught them to tie up without actually teaching them to follow the halter pressure really well and to come off pressure. So that can cause some issues in the first place. But then what you do is, when you're tying up a horse or teaching it to tie up, you got this motivation that you can mess with, okay? So if I'm going to teach a horse to tie up, and I'm very big on teaching horses to tie up, because they've got to do a lot of it, for their own safety or for you being able to do things, they've got to learn how to tie up and relax and stand there, and I teach them. But how I do it is I tie them up and teach them to tie up after I've worked them. So the motivation to stand still is more in my favour. I'm not going to bring them out of the paddock when they're all fresh or when it's dinner time and there's other motivation for them to want to be somewhere. That's going to set you up to fail. Set yourself up to win. Make sure that they, they're feeling like they want to stand still. Okay, so after you've worked them, then I tie them up, and then I don't necessarily I stretch it out for how long they can actually stand there. So be smart, okay? Start tying them up when they're motivated to stand still. Then what I do is that during tying up is that if they get agitated and stuff, I'll just quietly take them off. I'll work them again and I'll put them back, getting them to stand still again, you know. But what I do is I make sure I create a bit of a pattern with it. So I work them, I tie them up, work them, tie them up. And when I taking my horse out and about, like the other question of how I get a horse good going out is I'm taking it on lots of trips. That's another thing is I take them out, I work them, I tie them up. You know, they learn that pattern and that routine. So they learn that they're going to be, you know, they're not tied up forever, but they learn to do it. And that thing is, if they get agitated and want to move, I let them move, you know, and I take some of that motivation to want to move around out of them by giving them a bit of work and then putting them back. And that seems to work really well. Anyway, that's the end of my Facebook Live. I'm really sorry, but on my screen I've got no comments, so I can't see if anyone's said any comments or anything like that, but I'll go through them afterwards and I'll answer them if I can, and I will definitely be putting up these photographs for everybody so that you can have a look at that. But so thanks for listening. Please just remember, check out my book on confidence and trust. I've got some really cool feedback for it. It's not like the longest book in the world. It's deliberately not being that. I got some really good feedback from one of my friends saying it's I'm going to call him my friend because my friend's going to give me good feedback, isn't it? Very easy to read, simple and easy to read, caters for very intelligent and those of us who just like an easy read. Okay, it's a book that you read, gives you ideas, and then encourages you to reflect. And also there's my course out there as well that helps with a lot of these issues that we just talked about. Anyway, thank you, and I'll see you all next week. See ya.